In what some are calling the largest protests ever in Hong Kong, by some reports more than 1 million citizens taking to the streets out of a total population of just 7.5 million. To have 1 million adults out, I've never heard of a protest so large. But as you can see, Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong, seems dead set on plowing forward with a law, if it's enacted, that would allow the extradition of people from Hong Kong to mainland communist China, which would, of course, put the liberties of Hong Kong at even greater risk than they are now. Well, there's one man who knows more about this subject than anyone else I know. In fact, he wrote the book called The Coming Collapse of China. His name is Gordon Chang. You can follow him on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang, and he joins us now via Skype. Gordon, great to see you again. What do you make of these protests? They looked enormous. I can't believe literally 1/7 of the population, that's got to be like a quarter of the adults in that city, came out to protest. That's amazing.
It is amazing, and it was whole families and people who have never protested before. People did this because there's a thought that this is really Hong Kong's last stand. Beijing had promised autonomy for Hong Kong for 50 years, starting in 1997, when the city was handed back, as they say, from Britain to China. And really right now, what we're seeing are people just understanding that if they don't take a stand, then clearly Beijing will just control the city completely. Carrie Lam, the chief executive, says she's doing this on her own, not on instructions from Beijing, but that's not to be believed. So right now, we're in a little bit of a standoff. Carrie Lam has the votes in LegCo, the legislature, to be able to push this through. We'll just find out what the people of Hong Kong are made of and what they're going to do next.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in 1997 when the handover from the United Kingdom to China happened, and it was a very Canadian story, Gordon, because a lot of Hong Kong citizens were granted Canadian passports as sort of a safety valve. The promise was, if I recall the motto, one country, two systems. And yes, that meant a different economic system, and everyone thinks of Hong Kong as perhaps the most capitalistic place in the world. Well, the rest of China's caught up a bit on the capitalism side, but the more important system was the rule of law, the independent judiciary, the freedoms. I think that China is becoming more capitalist, but they're trying to make Hong Kong less civilly free. What do you think happened to one country, two systems?
Well, one country, two systems is in real danger because in China itself, you have Xi Jinping, the ruler, really believing in a state-dominated economy. So he's pushing China back to something that Mao Zedong would be more familiar with. Also, we speak of China being authoritarian, but it's really becoming semi-totalitarian and probably on its road to full totalitarianism with the social credit system, with much more censorship, with all the rest of it. So China is moving in directions that no one except Xi Jinping really wants to see. At this particular time, as businesses look at Hong Kong and the business community, it's not just dissidents who are against the extradition bill. It's also businesses because they realize that they're at risk as well. I think that we could see some of them actually return to the United States, for instance, in the financial sector, but also, regional headquarters going to Singapore, maybe Taipei, Tokyo, because businesses understand that they just cannot live in an environment where you've got Beijing being able to pick people off the streets of Hong Kong.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue and then I interview an interesting guest. And then I end by reading my hate mail, but you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.